Episode 1 of Inventing Anna begins with an introduction to the con artist we'll be following across the season. That woman happens to be Anna Delvey. Strap yourselves in, this one's going to be a wild ride. We begin our tale with Anna's arrest, and that's big news, causing ripples across the social stratosphere. A whole host of characters begin to squirm and try to navigate this bombshell, grappling with the gravitas of this revelation. One person trying to take advantage of this is a reporter called Vivian Kent who tries to talk her bosses into changing her allotted story. Despite being given a riveting and provocative article to write about, it's not enough. In fact, she wants to bag an interview with Anna. She's rejected though, with an offhand "met to" comment from her editor Paul. Vivian ends up defying her editor anyway, showing up at court to watch Anna get sent to Rikers Island. Vivian's eagerness in getting a story, and stonewall no comments from her lawyer, causes her to run late to see her partner Jack. You see, Vivian is heavily pregnant, but she sees it as one big inconvenience, leaving Jack high and dry at the doctor's for a scan she hasn't bothered to show up for. Vivian brushes this aside, though, and writes a letter to Anna personally, asking to meet as she believes there's a bigger story, and wants her side of it all. So naturally, Anna gets in touch, and agrees to meet. At Rikers, Vivian meets Anna, who claims she's not superficial, and is trying to build a business. Delvey isn't an alias either, it's her mum's maiden name. Vivian wants to dig deeper, and as she listens, Anna clearly manipulates her, and claims she didn't do anything wrong. Meanwhile, Anna's lawyer Todd arrives before the prosecutor, Catherine, and urges her not to pursue this. Todd tries to play up that Anna is a nice, sweet woman and misunderstood, but that's not going to fly. Instead, Catherine suggests a plea deal, given she has 11,000 papers to go through and this could get very ugly very quickly. Back home, Todd deliberates over the deal and eventually talks to his partner, Mags, about this. Over at the Manhattan, with Paul watching on, Anna organizes her little team to find someone to talk about Anna and what happened. Only, she's constantly put on hold and gets nowhere. She's eventually called out by Paul, especially when Fatima shows up with a message from the DA's case. Naturally, this gets Vivian into hot water as she's clearly defied her editor. Eventually, Vivian gets the room with Landon, her boss, and refuses to do her Metu story, grumbling that Paul never gives her anything decent. When Landon learns she managed to talk to Anna and Rikers, it does pique his interest. Eventually, he agrees to give her 2 weeks. If she can get an exclusive interview and a well-sourced documentation of this, she'll have a pass. If not, then Paul will reassign her. So Vivian gets to work, scouring through social media and chatting to hotel staff, where she was prolific for leaving $100 bills as tips. Anna is not budging, and she keeps peddling the media visit and the perks that come with it. During another visit at Rikers, Anna fires a question back about Vivian and her attire. Specifically how she looks poor. Anna encourages her to splash out and get some designer gear, refusing to answer her questions. Instead, she brings up the plea deal on the table and considers going for that instead. As Vivian walks away, Anna tells her to work harder. Only then she might actually speak up. Vivian is stressed and feels the weight of the world on her shoulders, especially when she believes Anna is going to take the plea deal. Between her pregnancy and career, Vivian doubles down on trying to find information to use. Specifically, she finds a woman named Neff, who happened to work at the hotel at the time. Neff refuses to be interviewed, claiming she doesn't want to sell out her friend. When Vivian mentions the plea deal, Neff sees straight through her facade and her hustle, eventually seeing Vivian open up and admit she wants what's best for her career and for Anna. So naturally, Vivian organizes the VIP treatment for Anna at Rikers. Vivian manages to convince Anna, and she decides to go to trial and fight back instead. Why? Well, Anna Delvey wants to be famous and Vivian's story can make that happen. News of the trial echoes over to our rich socialites who realize Anna isn't taking the deal and contemplate what. Episode 2 of Inventing Anna begins with Vivian interviewing Anna in prison. She discusses Anna's personality and how she's going to speak to Val and try to get a more rounded perspective of her. So then we jump across and see Val while he's organizing a fashion shoot. Vivian shows up and speaks to him, where Val mentions how cold and unapproachable Anna was. He was desperate to be her friend though, realizing very quickly that Anna knew exactly what to say, what to do and how fashion-orientated she was. She knew exactly what she was doing and managed to capture Chase's attention immediately. Who's Chase, you may ask? Well, only Anna's boyfriend at the time. Alas, the plot thickens. So Vivian heads back to the office and catches up with her makeshift team, who piece together a timeline of Anna's actions. In 2011 she attended a fashion program in Central St. Martin's, London. Then she head to Paris. In 2013 she seems to have become Delvey, but the records are hazy. It's here Anna also met Val, and it seems the pair have a connection to Acme Bar, given they both have the same photo of it on their social feeds. Digging deeper, the team also find a chess set posted by both Chase and Anna. From here, their feeds are perfectly synced, with Chase having a constant flurry of new money coming in. Given he did shows all over the place, Anna played her part well as his partner and lived up the lavish lifestyle. However, their feed went dead in 2016. Val also brings up Anna's friendship to Nora Radford, the middle-aged lady we saw last episode. Not only that, she also seems to have ties with a woman named Talia Malay, which Anna needs the funds from Paul authorized for to go and meet her. Paul refuses initially, but Vivian eventually manages to twist his hand, and he agrees. Vivian doesn't show up alone though, and Jack drops her off at the front door. Talia is incredibly rich, but she's also a go-getter. She's made her own money since branching out from her parents, admitting that she didn't even turn on an oven until she was 25 years old. It's a nice way of understanding Talia's personality, given she initially presents herself as a rich girl with everything handed to her on a plate. I mean, had is technically still true, but she's at least trying to make a name for herself. As they sit down and talk, Talia gushes over Anna's tenacity and her knowledge in art. They first met at a gallery, with Anna admitting that her father will buy everything for her. This rubs Talia up the wrong way as she admits that earning it beats inheriting it any day of the week. Their opposing views sync when they find common ground on a photo, eventually leading to Anna and Chase meeting Talia on a yacht in Ibiza. Part of this comes from a guy called Henrik, whom Chase sees as a prominent businessman that could help get a foot in the door. Although Chase's pitch doesn't quite work, Anna instead manages to get through to him. She brings up his age and how he's set in his ways, using a story about Facebook, the telephone, and the imminent presence of death to convince him. Unfortunately, Anna outstays her welcome and stays on the boat for a week longer than everyone else, stealing a living. Talia is convinced that this is Chase's doing, but that incident is the last time they actually spoke. Meanwhile, Rachel refuses to go and see Anna try Kurz, which certainly riles up Neff. When she runs into Casey later that day, she's also decided not to see Anna, pointing out that the person in prison is not Anna Delvey and a con artist. Neff is confused, peddling the fact that she's their friend. The truth is, none of them really knew her, and this is just starting to hit home for Neff. Meanwhile, Talia finishes her story and offers Vivian the chance to stay the night. It's a million miles away from her apartment, and Jack stays with her. They even have a guest room with heated floors. After heading back into New York, Vivian catches up with Val again. This time though, he speaks about how Chase and Anna were falling apart at the seams. In the middle of Paris Fashion Week, it's clear that Chase's financial woes are causing a rift between them. They have such a massive argument that ends with Chase breaking up with her there and then. So naturally, Anna stays with Val that night. In the morning, Chase rings and urges him to check her passport, believing Anna is lying about who she is. Val refuses, but when there's an issue at the hotel with Anna's cards, she claims it's her father that's cut her off completely. This is all a big manipulation, and eventually Chase shows up and pays. As Val picks up his luggage, he checks Anna's passport and notices it reads Sorokin rather than Delvey. Val encourages Chase to try and help, but this revelation causes him to spin out. After finding this out, Chase completely spins it around and blames Val, deciding to live the lie instead of face the truth. It turns out Chase is actually in on this with Anna. He confronted her about her name on the balcony overlooking the Eiffel Tower. Here, Anna claims she's creating art studios in New York and wanting to be at the top of the world. but she can be questioned over how to get there. Her fierce tenacity sees Chase stand by her side as they both decide to conspire together and blame Val. As the episode closes out, Vivian visits Anna once more at Rikers, telling her she needs to talk about Chase. Episode 3 of Inventing Anna begins with Vivian at Rikers with Anna. She brings up the Anna Delvey Foundation, but she vehemently declines to admit that she and Chase were in love. According to Anna, she was just using him as a means to an end, pointing out how many languages she's fluent in, and also how brilliant she is. Vivian continues to brush aside her commitments to being a mum, leaving Jack to put up the crib and sort all the other trivial things with being a parent out himself. With her Anna wall staying up for now, Vivian chases leads by heading off and speaking to Nora. Vivian promises to shield Nora's identity, which is enough for her to open up. Nora reveals that Chase and Anna stayed with her for several months in 2014. Anna didn't want to take Daddy's money anymore, so she decided to go on her own. Chase, meanwhile, put all his money into his startup. Nora saw straight through Anna though, calling her a name dropper, and reveals how she never got up before noon. Nora also wasn't fond of Chase either. This timeline we jump to occurs right after the Val incident, with Anna and Chase staying at Nora's place. Chase has her meeting three prominent people in the morning: lead architect Gabriel Calatrava, Sasha Thomas, the founder and lead gallerist at Thomas and Fortman. The third happens to be Richard Lavin, who manages all of Manhattan's highest-end properties. Unfortunately, Anna Delvey runs into a big roadblock, and with a blank no all round, Anna decides to use Nora to open doors and get people to join her team. Chase is quick to remind her that Nora is prickly and usually only helps those who need it, but Anna is a hustler and soon tags along with her as she heads out on her rounds. In doing so, Anna ends up meeting a fair amount of influential women. Meanwhile, Chase decides to leave and heads to Open Air Berlin, only it turns out it was actually cancelled this year. So where is Chase? Anna is a mess and winds up drinking and leaving numerous voicemails asking that very question. As Vivian continues on the trail of finding out where Chase is, we learn that in 2015, Silicon Valley actually invested $3 million into Chase's app, but despite being the next big thing, he went dark several months later. It appears as if everything has gone wrong for him and he's hiding from his investors. There are rumblings that he's in Dubai working for the Chic. So naturally, Vivian begins ringing around to numerous hotels in an effort to figure out if that's where he really is. Visiting Anna again helps to shed a bit more light on this, including how Chase has run out of money, but he's about to get a $2 million investment from Nora's friend. If she finds out about his finances, then it's game over. For Anna, she claims again that Chase was just an inconvenience. When Vivian manages to track down Chase, they video call together as she learns more about what happened between Chase and Anna. His company, Wake, wasn't doing too well, and with him swimming in debt and responsibilities, Anna let slip about Wake's issues to Nora. This is, of course, her way of getting exactly what she wants, no matter how far that causes Chase to fall. This shift sees Nora bring Anna rather than Chase along to her big art fundraiser, which helps get Anna's name out and pinch the connections that Chase and Nora had worked so hard to secure. They eventually part ways though, with Chase even urging her to let him have 40% off the Anna Delvey Foundation. Naturally, she refuses. Vivian takes this news and heads off to see Catherine again. She spins the story, asking about whether Nora filed a complaint against Anna. Catherine refuses to play ball, so Vivian plays her hand and spins the entire story, claiming that the real crook in all this was actually Chase. Apparently all of her sources back this up too. It's enough for Catherine to open up after this lie and admit that someone changed their mind about pressing charges. And that someone happens to be Nora. It turns out there are a whole bunch of different charges on her card, which links back to when Anna signed for Nora at the shop. Anna ended up clocking an eye-watering amount of $400K on Nora's account. Is this enough to convince Vivian that Anna isn't actually a nice person and a big con artist? Well, Nora claims she dropped off a package for her, brought in by Val at the time. Vivian eventually heads off to see Todd, urging him to let her be part of the team. Eventually he caves and it gives Vivian a big break. And with a lot of big details to go on, Paul and the team allow Vivian to have a couple more weeks on the Episode 4 of Inventing Anna begins in the past with Anna buying her building to hold the Anna Delvey Foundation. She wants it to be the exclusive place for anyone who's anyone in this world. She discusses at length about 3 restaurants, hotel rooms and even exclusive rooms too. The lease is $4 million a year, but she's going to need about $40 million in order to get this up off the ground. Anna's dream team is up and running, but in order to finance this lot, Anna heads off to see a guy called Alan Reed. She first met him in his office, pitching her foundation to him and mentioning how it's to be an exclusive club, giving her guests more than they had previously. Alan immediately brings up the volatile market, along with her KPIs and research. With no professional experience or capital, Alan rejects her claim. When Anna talks to Vivian about why she was rejected, Anna tells Vivian that this is because she's a woman. It's not, obviously, but it's enough to hook Vivian in. As she continues searching around, Vivian learns how Anna managed to convince those in business. Specifically, Anna starts to look the part, complete with glasses and a suit jacket. She even shows up at Alan's office, indirectly threatening his daughter and using her as leverage. This crazy play is what gets Anna's foot in the door, specifically through talking to someone in Germany called Peter Hennecke, who happens to be in charge of Anna's trust fund. To seal the deal, she invites Alan along to see how Anna Franks operate and meet those influential people firsthand. All of this is, of course, a play to make him think she's legit. In the morning, Peter agrees to send over her trust in the morning, confirming she has around $65 million. Believing it's a surefire thing, Alan signs the box that confirms Anna is able to pay. It's a completely ill-informed decision, and one that obviously comes back to bite him. The thing is, for Alan this is all about money, and with his services estimated to be an eye-watering $2,000 an hour, it's more surprising that he managed to clock up 200 hours for Anna without once being paid for it, much less with a retainer in place. The thing is, even Todd isn't being paid by Anna either. As Anna's records begin to roll in, Vivian heads to work and is bombarded by her team. They've discovered that Anna actually chartered a $35,000 private plane to take her to Omaha. But she didn't pay for it, she stole it to go and see Warren Buffett's conference. And she did that by texting a guy called Ron, who's actually the CEO, allowing her to fly without any cash. A ballsy move for sure, but according to Ron, that's because she looked the part and seemed to be good for the money. Unfortunately, Anna also manages to twist Alan around her finger and convinces him to be on her board of directors, forcing his hand to help with her finances. Alan does just that and manages to oversee her loan of $200K. As Vivian and co. continue to do some digging, it turns out Peter Hennecke was actually just Anna with a voice distorter, using a virtual SIM to pretend she's from Germany. This fraud leaves Alan in a difficult position, but he falls upwards, managing to get himself a promotion. Vivian obviously jumps all over that, bemoaning how there are zero consequences for these men while watching a broadcast of Donald Trump. Of course, Episode 5 of Inventing Anna starts with us shifting perspective over to Neff as she goes about her day at the hotel. She certainly knows her stuff, and Vivian is keen to probe her and learn everything she does about Anna. Neff doesn't give up much, given she's fiercely loyal to Anna, and beyond telling Vivian she stayed with them for 3 to 4 months, she doesn't reveal much else. Back at work, there's a big problem abound. There's a brand new episode of America Investigated about to launch, and the hot topic is that of fake news. So how does that concern Viv? Well, one of the people scheduled to appear happens to be Donovan Lamb, and he's going to talk about bad journalism and Vivian. This links back to something from her past, a case we've been hearing snippets of, but the full clarity of which has been left unknown for now. Paul even arranges a full interview for her to open up and discuss what actually happened. Paul believes it's a good opportunity for her to speak her truth and unveil what really happened. For now, it's kept sidelined in favor of a very impatient Vivian, trying to learn why Anna stayed so long in the hotel. Some of that stems from Neff, and specifically on her vouching for Anna's credibility. After comping off a $400 bottle of wine, which Neff claims to her boss will pay dividends unto itself, she notices the proposals printed regarding Anna's building and believes she's in the money. So naturally, Neff bends over backwards to please her, given the heft amount of tips she leaves on the table in $100 bills. Essentially, she was buying Neff's secretarial services, making sure she's put onto VIP lists. As Vivian puts it, Neff was the power behind the throne. Neff's partner worries that this is a scam for her to look the other way, which it clearly is. After saving Anna from a handsy guy called Conrad at the hotel, Anna invites Neff along to her party, and she sees firsthand how crazy rich these guys are. She also meets Rachel here too, someone who's already close to Anna. She's unaware of how they met, but Neff is convinced that Rachel was only interested in the money. Now, these three end up meeting Casey at the gym together, turning this trio into a quartet. Anna even paid Casey $4,000 a month to be her personal trainer. So naturally, the four drink and spend time together with Neff, taken aback by Anna's generous nature. Of course, it's worth bearing in mind that this money she's giving away so freely is the same that she's fraudulently gained. Anyway, she and Anna discuss their current circumstances, at least until Anna just falls asleep midway through talking. Everything is good for a while, until Neff finds out that Anna has been lying. At the hotel, Neff is reprimanded by her boss over the credit cards failing, so, because she's so close to her, Neff is tasked with getting a card on record. She sees firsthand how dire her situation is, and during an awkward lunch at a cafe, Neff decides to pay for her. This is the turning point, with Neff's partner urging her to open her eyes and realize she's being played. At the hotel, Neff realizes Anna's card isn't working, and her bill is over $34K. So Neff confronts Anna later that afternoon and tells her to handle her business and work out paying back her bills. Through all of this scamming and fraudulent behavior, Vivian still peddles the idea that Anna was scared and misunderstood, believing the foundation money would go through to pay for her bill. But yet, Vivian refuses to acknowledge that she obtained that money originally in a fraudulent way. Maybe she is a bad journalist after all? Well, soon we find out what's going on with this Donovan Lamb situation. Apparently, this kid made $80 million on the stock market before he was able to even drive. Vivian verified all of this, but she believed there was something funny going on. Paul jazzed up the headline, and unfortunately the kid rescinded his statement, claiming he was pressured into lying. Vivian lost her job and she ended up under pressure and desperate to claw her way back up to the top. And the Anna Project is obviously her way of doing that. So Viv makes a decision and confronts Paul, telling him he needs to do the interview himself, tell everyone he's to blame. Meanwhile, Anna leaves the hotel but does so by paying up all of her bills, everything she owes, and handing back the money to Neff. It turns out she's the only person Anna actually paid back in full, which goes some way to explain why Neff looks on her so favorable. She eventually shows up at Rikers to see her friend, where the pair get along well and talk like old. Episode 6 of Inventing Anna starts with Vivian and Jack meeting Todd and Mags at dinner. As they look into Anna's past, and specifically an expensive trip to Morocco, where Rachel paid most of the expenses. But how? And why? Well, to find out we shift perspective again, and this time turn to Casey, and see her side of what's happened. During a workout, Anna receives a call from Alan about her incoming loan. With things heating up, she suggests heading to Morocco, and invites Casey to join her and Rachel. So naturally, the pair agree, and the action turns to Africa for this chapter. They bring along a videographer called Noah too, with Anna deciding to film everything, after finding inspiration from a Khloe Kardashian video. Specifically, they find the spots that she posted from and take selfies there too. So for the next 15 minutes we get a series of massages, drinking, eating, and general tomfoolery. That is, until Casey ends up getting sick from the food. She's the only one, but believes this is a sign from the universe to protect her from what's about to go down. At home, Casey receives a call from Anna, telling her she's been mugged and asking her for money for a plane ticket, and even has the audacity to ask for it first class too. With Casey back in the US and spending quality time with her partner, Anna keeps ringing, claiming it's an emergency and needing help. She even asks to stay on Casey's couch too. Casey refuses though, until she threatens to commit suicide. That obviously affects Casey a lot, but when her partner Martin finds out, he's not exactly happy, and ends up leaving. Now we see the real Anna, including how she took advantage of her hospitality, berated the dress Casey gave her, and drinks the last of her water. As Vivian listens to this whole story, she's shocked and taken aback by this turn of events. And as we soon learn, that incident that was filmed in Morocco included security showing and demanding Anna pay up. Of course, she doesn't have the funds, and even refers to Morocco as a dirty country. Wow. In the wake of all this drama, Rachel diffuses the whole situation by offering up her card for the trip. Shell-shocked, Rachel is clearly worried, but Anna nonchalantly shrugs it off, deciding to leave a one-star review on TripAdvisor instead. She doesn't even bat an eyelid or say thanks to Rachel for covering her. After an expensive trip to the gardens, Rachel is in even hotter water, with only her work card to use. Anna's left on the periphery of all this, while Rachel is the one caught in the crossfire. Rachel's card is declined, and she struggles to get through to American Express. Meanwhile, Anna manages to get her loan through just in time, but she also needs to have an investigator sent over to search through and verify her assets. Of course, that's not going to work, and Noah senses something afoul, especially when he finds a drunk Anna batting balls in the tennis court and fumbling her story about the loan. When he catches up with Rachel, he convinces her to pack up and leave. Given Rachel paid for all of this on her personal and work hard, finding out that Anna's money won't be wired in for a few days, she takes Noah's advice and hightails it away. This puts her plight and why she won't see Anna Trikers into perspective. Despite leaving, Anna stayed at the hotel for another week, and in that time, maxed out Rachel's personal card and charged her Amex to the grand sum of $62,000. Wow. Of course, Neff has a different perspective on this and claims that Rachel offered up her card and was happy to splash out. So who's telling the truth? In order to find out, Vivian leaves a flurry of voicemails for Rachel, trying to get through to her and learning her side of the story. Episode 7 of Inventing Anna begins with Paul grilling Vivian and asking her to crack on and get the article to him ASAP. With the baby due in 2 weeks and the first draft not even written, Vivian is still torn over the Rachel debacle. So why is she not talking to Vivian? Well, it turns out she's actually sold her story to Vanity Fair already. When Vivian does some research, she realizes the article was actually written by Rachel herself. Although Paul claims they've been had, Vivian throws shade at Rachel, saying she's not a real journalist, and that Vivian's piece is about the fetters of female ambition. Her pitch does well to keep Landon on her side, and she's allowed to keep writing. During flashbacks, we see Rachel drowning in stress. She's still $62K in debt, with Anna avoiding her calls and dodging the real issue. She promises to wire the money, but it's been over 3 months and still nothing. Until one day when Anna transfers $5K, a fraction of what she really owes. Rachel still clings by the fact that she and Anna are still friends, but Noah is concerned. The thing is, Rachel won't turn over Anna to the police in Trump's America, but fails to see how big of a con artist she is. Eventually the real Anna comes out and Casey forces an intervention. There, they call out her BS, but Anna claims the money is coming and continues to dodge the question. After calling Rachel a baby and dramatic, she runs away. When Vivian shows up to try and retrace Anna's steps, Casey gets cold feet and wants her name taken out the article. Of course, this is all to drum up a bit of superficial drama, as Casey soon decides to keep her quotes after all, but using the alias of the trainer. Just as Vivian receives this news, she goes into labor and is rushed into hospital, complete with the whole editorial room erupting into applause. Anyway, Vivian gives birth, while her article is released to the public. Episode 8 of Inventing Anna begins with Vivian in hospital after giving birth. Only, she's not exactly happy about being a mum. Instead, she's more preoccupied with her article. So naturally, right after giving birth, Vivian heads over to Rikers to see Anna. After reading Vivian's article, Anna isn't impressed. She shrugs and calls her a bad journalist. "Hundreds of hours and you still don't know a thing about me," she says, as their allotted time is up, and Anna heads back to her cell. 2 months pass and Vivian is still moping about the house. Despite setting the internet on fire, Vivian believes she's missed the real point of the article. So naturally she ends up diving back into the story again. In fact, she leaves and goes to Germany, leaving her 2-month-old at home without her mother. She's even done all of this under the pretense of her responsibility as a journalist. But hey, maybe a real journalist would have actually dived into the history and upbringing of their subject before launching a big article? Anyway, Anna packs up her things and prepares to leave. During our flashbacks, we cut to Law with Anna on the run. She heads to the Chateau Mormont and continues to ignore messages from Rachel, Neff and everyone else she owes money to. Instead, she gets blind drunk and takes Xanax pills. After blacking out, she awakens to find herself in hospital. Meanwhile, Vivian heads to Germany and she meets her translator, Mira. She fangirls over Vivian for a while before the two get down to brass tacks. Vadim is Anna's father, and he apparently runs a trucking and cooling house. She believes this stems from the end of the Soviet Union, where gangsters managed to make a lucrative amount of money and stash it in these little businesses. Flashbacks to Anna's childhood see Vadim and young Anna speaking English, which, honestly, is a bit disappointing. It would have been more effective in Russian. Anyway, Vivian deduces that Anna was working for her father smuggling money. According to locals, Anna soon became the bona fide fashion police and began belittling the other students for what they're wearing. Rumors were abound about her father being a gangster, but what's the real story? According to Anna, her father lost everything, and when he started drinking, he changed from strong and confident to angry and small. So naturally, Anna started reading magazines and learning about American culture, wanting to get away from everything, including her father. Anna eventually ends up in rehab, with Rachel deciding to bury the hatchet, ringing and asking to meet. When Anna shows up, she's promptly arrested as officers happen to be waiting for her. She's taken back to New York and arrested, a sweet bit of revenge for Rachel, who can hardly hide her smirks while she's talking to Casey and Neff about this. In Germany, Vivian interviews Vadim, who corroborates some of Anna's earlier story. However, the real truth here is that there's nothing really to the story or history. Anna has just always been this way, and her ambition has been underpinned with a tinge of icy cold anger and resentment. Off the back of this, Vivian decides to go back home again. When she shows up, Vivian is sent records from her time in hospital in Law. With this, Vivian realizes that Anna was just buying time, but Vivian promises she's still rooting for her. She tells her to stop the con and to ask for a plea deal so she can go back to Germany. Anna refuses though and heads back into her cell. Episode 9 of Inventing Anna begins this finale with Todd visiting Anna and prepping her for the court case ahead. All of this is going to be decided on by a jury, so Todd gives her instructions to tricking them into believing she wasn't even close to receiving her money. While Anna sorts out a stylist to work on her hair, she rings Todd's secretary and tells him to pass on a message. Specifically, to talk to Anna's father and wire $10K to cover the costs. Anna isn't happy with her clothes and forces Todd to head off and go shopping to pick up items that are closer to her liking. Vivian senses an opportunity and promises to do this for him in exchange for discovering everything about the case. How does the case start? Finally, Anna gets dressed and Todd gives his opening statement, pointing out that Adam wasn't close to receiving loans or money. The court case soon turns into a big fashion drive, with Anna getting dressed in various different outfits over the days, but completely brushing over the real crux of the issue here. Casey and Rachel aren't exactly pleased with Neff, given her social media pictures and posts have turned Anna into some sort of icon like Rihanna. Rachel, however, is worried about testifying, but eventually she stands up and talks passionately about how Anna betrayed her trust and destroyed her confidence. What happens with Rachel in court? The next day, Anna ends up having wardrobe malfunction. Todd has had enough. He gives an impassioned speech against Anna and her constant BS, telling her she's an awful con artist and managing to get through to her. Todd plays Anna's game and admits he'll keep fighting because he's doing it for himself. However, she needs to play ball, and that includes Todd defending her honor and not exposing her as the fraud that she is. So next up, Todd grills Rachel and exposes her for being responsible for the sting operation. This forces Casey to leave in the middle of court. Of course, all of this was done to expose Anna, and as she and Casey argue, I miss the real point of all this. Anna never intended to pay back Rachel and threw her under the bus. Sure, American Express managed to sort out the charges, but only after Rachel exposed Anna as the scam artist. Anyway, Casey soon leaves and bemoans Rachel for turning on her friend. Was Anna Delvey found guilty? After some drama involving Todd and Margaret along with Jack and Vivian, the latter is all about Vivian not being there for her daughter, and it's quite credible. We return to the courtroom for the closing arguments. Todd's takes an interesting turn, distorting this across to blaming the bankers and betraying Anna, claiming her ideas were all a big pipe dream rather than genuine. It's the only way to try and get her out of prison, but Anna is shell-shocked and doesn't know what to say or do. Finally, we arrive at the grand finale, and a flurry of guilty verdicts come in. Now, it's worth noting here that City National is classed as not guilty, which gains a bunch of whoops and cheers at Vivian's workplace. Brilliant bit of impartiality there, guys. The other not guilty comes from Rachel Williams. After beating two of Anna's biggest charges, Todd decides to skip out on Margaret and returns to Anna's side. He also chooses to ring Anna's father as well to let him know. Why is Vivian not happy after the case? Meanwhile, Vivian returns to work where Paul and Landon are gushing over how well the article is doing online. For Vivian though, she's still hung up on the white dress Anna was wearing in court. It's hers from her own wardrobe, but she's spinning out. Vivian admits that she cares about Anna and got emotionally invested. She's encouraged to move on to the next job, but she's not sure how. The sentencing comes in and Anna is put behind bars for 12 years. Or 4 to 12 according to optimistic Todd. Vivian is not happy. In fact, she calls her a middle-aged woman whose life will be stolen from her. How does Inventing Anna end? Anna is moved to Bedford, while Vivian visits one more time to say goodbye. As Anna is taken back into her cell, we jump to see what our various characters are up to now, including how Todd Spodek has become the defender of choice for prominent fraudsters. Casey has cut out pain-in-the-ass clients, Neff is pursuing her film career, while Rachel released her book to much acclaim. Meanwhile, Vivian Kent's character was inspired by a real-life reporter called Jessica Pressler. She worked as a correspondent for Vanity Fair and completed her book titled Bad Influence. As for Anna, she was released in 2021 and then arrested a month later by ICE for overstaying her visa. Go figure. Ending of last episode. So Inventing Anna bows out its bloated runtime with a finale that finally sees Anna behind bars for her crimes. Even here though, the final episode has been much more about Anna's fashion than her actual crimes, and it's a shame the show didn't include the actual line from her court case. She showed more concern for her attire than the emotions of those she hurt. And that pretty much sums up Anna Sorokin. She played the system, hoodwinked banks, and fraudulently managed to claw her way to the top, while leaving people scrambling to make sense of it all. Sure, you could argue that the bankers are bad or Trump is horrible, but then that's like saying the Tinder swindler isn't that bad compared to other con artists. It's still a scam no matter what way you slice it. However, the show has been an entertaining watch, despite it being drawn out way longer than it needed to be. Some of these episodes really didn't need to be over an hour long. Despite all that though, Inventing Anna bows everything out with a conclusive chapter that leaves little doubt over how this story ends.